Hello and welcome to the Blue Skills training program for this week. I'm Isaac Giverson and I'm your coach on the program. This week we're going to be talking about self-motivation. So, you might be thinking, what is self-motivation? Self-motivation is the capacity to begin and succeed at a task without being forced by others. Another definition of self-motivation is that it is accomplishing what needs to be done without the need for prompting, supervision, influence, or push from others. A self motivated person sets goals, creates action plans, and accomplishes those goals. So, there are basically two types of self motivation. We have the intrinsic self motivation and we have the extrinsic self motivation. Okay, now what is the intrinsic self motivation? Intrinsic motivation is defined as the internal desire to act, create, pursue, or seek something without any external reward or consequence. So this means that the person who is motivated intrinsically is somebody who does something not because there's anything to gain from it or anything to suffer. They basically do it, number one, because they enjoy it. Number two, they do it because they are challenged by it. And number three, they do it because they find pleasure in doing it. So people who are intrinsically motivated, they do so when the activities they are engaged in is number one, interesting. So they find it interesting. That is why they engage in it. They don't need any external motivation. Nobody is going to pay them for it, or there's also nothing to fear or to fear that they are going to lose by engaging in it. They simply engage in it because they are one, interested in it. Number two, because they find pleasure in doing it. It's something that they enjoy doing it. Some people are involved in certain sports because they enjoy doing it. And nobody has to tell them to wake up early in the morning to go and practice or tell them to put in long hours of practice simply because what they find pleasure in doing that thing. That person is intrinsically motivated. The third thing is what they find it satisfying. Some people find fulfillment or satisfaction in doing a particular thing, and so they are intrinsically motivated to do that thing. The next is that what they are engaged, and then finally, it is challenging. There are people who enjoy challenges, so they take on certain things without being motivated or without being pushed by anyone, simply because they find it challenging and they like to face challenges and surmount them. The next is extrinsic motivation. Now, what is extrinsic motivation? Extrinsic motivation is basically motivation that comes as a result of number one, there is something to gain, or number two, the fear of losing or suffering something. So let's say, for example, you decide to read for your exam. You may not like the subject, you may hate reading, but because you don't want to fail an exam, you see, that's fear of something. It makes you to study your book. Or secondly, maybe there is a money prize for the best student in that particular exam. And because you want to win the money prize, even though you don't like the course, you don't like the subject, you still have to read so that you can get it. That is extrinsic motivation. It means that there's an external source of motivation that pushes you to get that thing done. So people who are extrinsically motivated are people who do things because the activities that they engage in gives them two things. Number one, it is rewarding. So people are extrinsically motivated when what the activity they're engaging in is rewarding. So there's reward, there's something to gain. Secondly, people are extrinsically motivated when the activities they are engaging in has consequences. And because they fear those consequences or they want to avoid those consequences, they engage in that particular activity. So I have a question for you. If you take an assessment of yourself, I want you to take a minute while watching this video to do an assessment of yourself. Do you find yourself, or do you think you are an intrinsically motivated person or an extrinsically motivated person. So now the importance of self motivation. Why is this subject even important? Why should we learn this skill of self motivation? Number one, it builds your confidence, right? Anyone who is self-motivated is one that has to be what? Confident. So if you're able to commit yourself to building self-motivation, one of the things that will happen to you is that you will become more confident. Because people who do not take steps are basically people who are afraid of failure. So for you to become a self-motivated person, it means you have to be someone who is confident and you are able to take steps, or you are bold in taking steps. The second importance of self motivation is that it makes learning easy. Anyone who is self motivated is committed to learning, and and learning comes easily to them. The next importance of self motivation is what? It builds you to overcome challenges. Life is full of challenges. Every now and then, whether at work or in business, you're bound to face challenges. Self motivation helps you to overcome challenges. Next is what? Achieving goals. Self motivated people always achieve their goals because they constantly find, whether externally or internally, they constantly find the need and the motivation to keep going until they achieve their goals. So if you want to be somebody who achieves their goals, one of the skills that you must develop is self motivation. And then finally, self motivated people are happy people, right? They're happy people because they are constantly pursuing their goals and they are achieving them. So they are happy because happiness comes with what? Fulfillment, and then accomplishment and achievements. So self motivated people are happy people. So next is on the discussion is factors affecting self-motivation. All right. There are four factors affecting self-motivation. Number one is fear of failure, right? Many times people are afraid to fail, and because they are afraid to fail, they do not find the motivation to do the things that they have set their mind to do or the things that they want to do. The second factor affecting self-motivation is insecurity. Sometimes we're not very sure of ourselves, right? Low self-esteem. We're insecure about our background. Probably you're not from a very rich background. Probably you do not have a very sound educational background, or you're living with a disability or something. The insecurity that comes with those things have a way of affecting your self-motivation in pursuing your dreams and pursuing your goals. The third thing is what? Lack of clear goals. When you're not very sure of what you want to accomplish, you're not sure of your goals, and you're not clear about them, there's no motivation what to pursue them. It is when there is clarity that you can have speed. So most times the motivation to even take on those things that you want to do is not there, simply because you are not yet clear on the things that are your goals or your dreams or the things that you're pursuing after. Then finally, peer pressure. Okay, if you constantly find yourself around people who are not self-motivated, it is highly likely that you yourself will not be self-motivated, because even if you find yourself around those kind of people, even when you try to do something worthwhile, they are either going to laugh at you or they will tell you that it's not possible, and so you don't find that motivation being around people who themselves are not self-motivated people. So these are the factors that affect self-motivation. So, how do you overcome these factors that affect self motivation and stay motivated? I'll give you a few points. Number one, take calculated risks. Okay? Yes, there are certain things that from the beginning you're going to see that doing this is a risk. But after thinking about it and doing your calculations, you should be able to what? Take risks. It is very important. Self motivated people are risk takers. Secondly, self motivated people, they ignore naysayers. Every now and then, you have people around you that will tell you that something is not possible, something cannot be done, or something is too big for you, or something. You understand? So, you always have people like that. You have to learn how to turn a deaf ear to those kind of people. So, ignore the naysayers if you must be a self motivated person. Thirdly, you have to always think positively, right? There are sometimes that the challenges that are in front of you will kind of dampen your motivation, right? You have to think positively. You have to tell yourself, this is possible and I can do it. So, thinking positively is a very good trait that helps you to develop self motivation. Next is setting clear, high, and realistic goals. So, number one, your goals must be very clear, right? Number two, the goals must be high. But in as much as your goals are high, they must also be realistic. All right. So one of the things that helps you to be a self-motivated person or to stay motivated is that your goals are clear, your goals are high, but then your goals are also realistic. Finally, you must spend time with motivated people. Remember when I talked about the factors affecting motivation, I told you being around unmotivated people can affect your motivation. If you want to become more motivated, you have to find friends, find colleagues, or always find yourself around people who are motivated, people who are always doing the next big thing, people who believe that something is possible and they always encourage you to go for the best. Find yourself around those kind of people. Finally, we're going to do a class activity. What I want you to do is to sit down, take a few minutes to really think of how self motivation can help you in your life, in your business, and in your career. Thank you for attending this class, and I'll see you in the next class.